Good afternoon, or good evening, good morning, wherever you at, whatever time it is in your area code that you're at, or when you get a chance to listen to Equity Chat 2.0. My name is Keith Curry, one of the Equity Avengers. Today, I'm here with Michael Itzkowitz, who is 15 years of experience in federal education policy. Michael has held senior roles inside and outside of government. His work and expertise is often cited by national news outlets, including the New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and NBC. He is nationally known just from that. Prior to beginning the HEA Group, Michael worked as a presidential appointee to the Obama administration at the United States Department of Education, where he was the director of administration for the College Scorecard, the largest release of higher education data ever by the federal government. He also served as the Deputy Chief of Staff in the Office of Post-Secondary Education, where he helped oversee the policy and administrative functions of the office, including over 180 employees across 3 divisions that dispersed approximately $2.5 billion in grants and established policy for nearly $120 billion in federal student aid every year. Man, I had a chance to read your bio ever. You
It's
did
a
a lot
lot
in
of
your
a
career.
lot of billions.
A
Yeah,
lot of billions with a B.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's a
So
lot
let me
there.
ask you. Let me ask you the first question. What is your walk-up song or anthem when you're about to do a speech or participate on a panel? What do you What song do you like?
Well, I'm from Broward County, Florida, so Kodak Black might set the vibe. You're from California, so equity work, keep your head up, because it's a challenge, the work that we're in, especially in these times. So it's important to keep our head on our shoulders, keep moving one foot in front of the other.
Kodak Black. I actually like him. I think he's a really interesting artist. Very entertaining. I love the song "Keep Your Head Up" by Tupac. It just reminds me, as leaders, that it's that's all you can do, right? You live to fight another day, but you just keep your head up and keep doing the work.
Exactly. I mean, not to go too far down this road, but a poem by Tupac, "A Rose That Grew from Concrete." I don't know if you ever heard
Yeah.
that, but yeah, it's about the tenacity of this one rose in comparison to these other flowers that are in flower beds all over the place. And which one are you going to celebrate? So I think we're trying to get, as many flower beds as possible so that not everyone's struggling to grow out of that concrete in those kind of conditions. And that's why we're here.
Yeah, I think music and poetry are good outlets for leaders, especially during these times, to keep moving and don't stop.
That's right.
So, what was there? Was there a defining moment or experience that catalyzed your journey to engage in this type of work?
Yeah, I mean, we all have something,
Yeah.
and there's probably 1,000 things, but I grew up in a family of educators, so I think there was somewhere in my blood that led me to the work that I do. My mom worked in early childhood education forever. My dad worked for the Broward Teachers Union in South Florida, sixth largest union within the country. And I grew up, I had all the benefits that my mom was at my elementary school, and things were going really well. Then I went to the middle school and I was exposed to a lot more things. Then I went to the high school. My brother went to the good high school. He got accepted into a special program and he started messing up. So my parents said, well, we're just going to send you to the neighborhood school. God bless them. That school had a 60% graduation rate. I'm able to see that now, because I deal with numbers all day. But my friends were all over the place, and some of them were in the 60%, and some of them were in the 40%. So I was lucky enough to get into a good college here, University of Florida. I wasn't looking beyond the state of Florida because of state scholarships and things like that, relevant to our conversation. And then I started to study different things, and business was one of them. And then sociology was something I was really attracted to. And it sort of put literature and research behind my life experiences. So that sort of got me on the path, and then other things presented themselves along the way, and I tried to take advantage of many of them. Some of them were happenstance, some of them were fortunate, some of them were grit and self-made. So
So, tell me about grit. What's your grit like?
Yeah, so grit, I think it's something inside of you, but it's something learned too. So I don't think any of us are born, naturally gritty, so to speak. But grit means that you're going to take advantage of things and knock on doors to make them open. If they're closed, you knock on them. When a door closes, a window opens. It's what you do with failure that makes you the person that you are today. I mean, we all fail, right? How many failures have you had? You don't have to answer that. But I've had a lot, right? So, but I kept going. There are so many things that I've learned from in my past that have brought me to my present, which made me the person I am today. And then, why people hire me, essentially, why they want to work with me is because I've already made all the mistakes. So they don't have to make them anymore. So there's been a lot of instances, my parents were educators. Like I'm not politically connected by any means. And when I get to DC, a lot of people are, they know someone who knows someone. Uh, but I needed to start at the bottom, not referencing Drake, Dr. Curry. But I started as a confidential assistant because that was the door that was open to me. It's a glorified name for a scheduler, for someone that's very important. So that was my first role, and eventually, I was able to show myself to get to where I'm at today, get to the director of the College Scorecard, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think we learn from our mistakes, and I think it's okay to make mistakes, right? I think it's okay to make mistakes, but the most important thing is to continue to learn from it, but also be able to share with people the mistakes that you have made, right? Because people think that some people think or believe that individuals in these types of positions or in these roles don't make mistakes. We
Right,
all make mistakes.
right.
Just some people don't share those mistakes, right? And then also some people don't learn from the mistakes. I feel for me, I learn from every mistake that I've had, but also I can be able to have a conversation about the mistakes and say, you know what? If I get a chance to do it over again, I do it this way, right? But I think it's a part of the whole learning process as leaders.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's in the culture. You've probably been around different folks, and some of them don't. They've never made a mistake in their life. And, it's not a real thing. But I'm sure that some of the folks that you've learned from, they're vulnerable with the things that they haven't done as well at. There are so many. I could look back on each and every role, and, I'm probably a little critical and nitpicky of myself, but I always remember the 1%, the one thing I didn't do right, or the two things I didn't do right. I mean, those are the things that kind of keep me up.
Yeah, I think about the stuff that I knew right yesterday, right? Because there's so much work that we're trying to do to advance student success. You're just trying to work it through, right? And I think that's okay as leaders. Talk to us a little bit about your Department of Education experience. I've been in the Department of Education for meetings. I never worked there. I'm just curious to know from you, from your various roles you had, what was that experience like?
It was exhilarating at the time that I was there. I started in 2010. This was under the Obama administration. I was previously on the campaign at some point before that. I have my master's degree in sociology. I kept knocking on doors, like I said, got offered this job to be a scheduler, so to speak. Confidential assistant sounds more secretive and cool, but this is what it is. And they called me up, the chief of staff, and they said, I'm worried you're going to get bored in this role. Like you want a policy role. You've been studying and doing research in your life. Like you're going to get bored and you're probably going to leave after 4 months. And I said, I appreciate the call. I understand that this person oversees all K through 12 education in the United States. She has to meet with very important people every day. I'm going to make the best briefing books that she's ever got, make sure that she's prepared for knowing exactly what they're going to say to her, what she should say in response after working with subject matter experts to make sure that we're moving our department on the right track. Also, if the bathrooms are dirty, I'm going to roll my sleeves up and I'm going to clean those too. And they said, okay, you can come on board. And I stayed in that role for a little bit, looking for other opportunities, was eventually given an opportunity to work in policy at the Office of Post-Secondary Education, took on a deputy chief of staff role, acting chief of staff for some time. And they were giving me two projects. One was something called the financial aid shopping sheet, and the other one was this little thing called the College Scorecard, yet to be announced. So eventually I did work my way up, but while I was there from 2010 to 2016, I was so encouraged by the folks around me. So people ended the conversation by saying, will this be best for kids? Now, it didn't happen 100% of the time, but it happened almost 100% of the time. So when you take that perspective of just these folks who could probably be making way more money elsewhere, who are here, by ending that conversation just that way. Also, I'll say it provided a great training ground because the government is a huge bureaucracy. And if you can learn how to navigate that thing, you can pretty much do it all.
So let me ask you this question. When you worked at the Department of Education, and I know the politics, Democrats, Republicans, how are you able to navigate the different politics within the department, but also to be able to be bipartisan and have conversations to do this work? How did that work for you? Like how are you able to do that?
So I was fortunate, and also I took advantage of an opportunity in front of me, that being the College Scorecard. And what the College Scorecard is, just for the listeners who may or may not know, it's the largest higher education database made available by the federal government. It's consists information over 5,000 institutions, 2,000 individual variables or measurements on each institution. There's also a fancy website, but you can have at it for downloading all the data. And when you think about that, transparency, providing information to people, having better outcomes so they can get better jobs, this doesn't really sit on one side of the aisle or the other. There are certain administrations, we're seeing that now. They can be very partisan in certain policies that they put forward. But this project, the College Scorecard, it started under the Obama administration, but was initially proposed under the Bush administration, under Secretary Margaret Spellings, then went through the Trump administration. They doubled down on it. They provided even more information. Then it went through the Biden administration. Now it's in the Trump administration. So it's these, like, if there's one initiative that sort of stuck around, it's that one. One of a few. When I left, I joined a think tank to analyze all the data, and I was intentional that I didn't want to work for a far left-leaning think tank. I wanted to work for a more centrist think tank because I knew Congress changes. There's Republicans and Democrats. You usually need both of them to get anything done. So I wanted the ability to have conversations with people on both sides of the aisle. So my work is generally seen, I think, as pretty objective. I've been on many podcasts, had many conversations with folks everywhere on every end of the political spectrum, and that's super helpful. So if for folks, I would just encourage that because it helps. Number one, like we're not doing that anymore in our society. Number two, it helps get things done, and you need to be able to talk with people.
So let me ask you this question. Once you left the Department of Education, you worked for a think tank, and then how did you found the HEA group? And what is that all about?
Yeah, so in 2023, I decided to formalize the HEA group. And, I had a lot of information, a lot of data, a lot of thoughts in my mind. And I thought that this was something I wanted to roll the dice on, and have a little bit more control over, a little bit more autonomy. So I quickly put up a website and started throwing data up on a website. No one was paying me to do this. I was just literally getting information out there, writing some analysis, things that I was interested in, things that I was important, that I thought were important. And one of our differentiators is within each and every analysis, we publish the data, right? Like you'll read all these research papers. If you wanted to look at the data, it's nowhere to be found. It's on someone's hard drive somewhere, hidden. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just not there for you to mess around with. And we took a theory of action that it's going to do no good sitting there. We want to plant a seed. We want that seed to grow stems, the stems, to grow leaves, and they're going to end up where they end up, but we know where it started. So we've been doing that since 2023. We've had, the privilege of working with amazing partners, talking with yourself, College Futures in California, many other folks around the country who are interested in better outcomes and economic mobility for students.
And you just said, let me just formalize it. Let me move this thing forward.
That's it, man. I mean,
You just had a belief and said, I'm doing this.
that's it. I don't know, what else to tell you, but it was that was pretty much it. And why not? I mean, no offense to any
No,
of my other friends, but I was like, if they can do it, why can't I do it? And there's something that we all have to offer. So there are some things that I think we have a niche in, and I thought this was a niche. And it's like, okay, this is where we can contribute. This is where I can have positive impact. So let's do it.
no. The reason why I say that is you have a lot of people out there who think about doing their own thing and like what makes someone want to do that and take a leap of faith, right? To be able to do that to do their own thing, right? And so I hear you the why not, but I know there's some scary points in that decision making. Am I correct?
Yeah, and we go back to the mistakes that
Yeah.
were made. You have to learn how do you set up an organization? How do you set up like reporting your taxes? Is it just me right now? How do I do a website? How do I send out an email to people? Like there's all these things that I've never done. And I was telling some students this morning I was talking to, I was like, look back on my earlier work. Like it's not very presentable. Like it's not, I don't want to say it's embarrassing, but it's like, you write something 10 years ago and you're like, what was I thinking? It's not that, but it's just like, it's so much more polished now. So we've got our stuff together in a way that I think just resonates more to the general public right now. But mistakes were made, times were had, hair wasn't pulled out. I mean, it was something that it was a passion. It was like, I just wanted to do it. And when you're doing something for free, and you have passion for that, there's a signal. It's like, there's a reason why you're doing it. No one's telling you to do it. There's no incentive to do it, except for it makes you happy and you think that you're impactful. And I think it's been helpful. I think people see that.
Next question, and I think about your experience in Department of Education, starting the HEA group, and the real conversation right now for me in higher education is about the return on investment, economic mobility. Can you talk about that first, the definition of that, and then talk a little bit about your work as it relates to the return on investment in economic mobility?
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about this since I left the department and I was able to analyze the data myself. So, for the first time ever in 2015, we put out actual earnings data for former students who attended an institution, whether it be Broward College, near where I live, University of Florida, where I went, Compton College, wherever it may be. And we're able to see how much students earn. And it's like the first time that information was ever made available. So I wanted to look at trends across the United States. What does it say? What are we seeing in terms of economic outcomes? And how do we measure that in a way? There's not one way. There's many people have taken a crack at this, but I developed something specifically, which was initiated by a conversation with my sister-in-law, who's a finance professor. And it was like, they have this price to earnings thing, this ratio in the stock market. I took a couple business classes. Stock analysts, they have a pretty good idea of the return, the risk and the return when it comes to that. Why can't students and families have the same? So we took these two factors, the cost, the net price that students pay out of pocket. And let's just say I went to University of Georgia, hypothetically, and it cost $10,000 a year out of pocket after all grants and scholarships. If you went 4 years, that would cost you $40,000, right? And I'm just making these numbers up for our conversation. But I can also see that University of Georgia students, they're making $20,000 more by going to the University of Georgia than the typical high school graduate in Georgia. So I said, well, that's a premium. That's your college premium. It's $20,000 because if you compare those to a non-college goer, you make this much more. So I essentially said, you pay $40,000, you're making $20,000 more by going. You can use that $20,000 extra to recoup your costs within 1, 2 years. So I hope that makes sense. But I started doing that for institutions. We've looked at it at programs. And then we moved on to the economic mobility aspect because I was seeing some ROI stuff when it came to low income students, which definitely made me start scratching my head.
For me, and you got me turned on to the return on investment, economic mobility, and I've been focused on this area because of your reports with the College Futures Foundation for the last year and a half. And I think people are afraid of these types of conversations because these are tough conversations you have to have, not only look at the programs, but also support programs for students. But I don't think it's a bad conversation, right? And I think people go to the negative end of the spectrum regards to what do you do with programs. But I think it gives you an opportunity, the data gives you an opportunity to see what's happening with our students and to figure out how we can support our students better, but also how we can support our programs as well to ensure that students are having a return on investment and economic mobility, and we can be able to highlight it to potential students. So I think it's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And we have information which allows us to be better, is the end of that story. But it takes a little while to get to that point of the perspective. Um, I think you and I have talked. It's like I've done this at the federal level, we've done it at the state level. Like I've done it a number of times. And when you present it to college leaders or people that are running these organizations on the ground, a lot of folks kind of go through the 5 stages of grief when presented with this data. You know, that they deny it, like it's flawed, like this isn't even real. Where are you getting this from? You know, they're angry at me, like sending me nasty emails, and then they bargain. They're like, well, if you're going to use these students, like, why don't you use these students instead, or measure them further out so we look a little bit. It's gonna take a while to get into the workforce and start making money if you're a liberal arts major. And like they move to acceptance, and like that's where the fun happens. You know, like it's going to take a minute, and everyone's in a different spot. But once you become to acceptance, it's like, okay, now what can I do with this information? And there's no one thing, right? It's just, but there's a number of things. But once you get there, that's when the opportunity starts.
You know, my dissertation for graduate school looked at the 5 stages of death and applied it to accreditation, right?
That's,
And I do
I have
think
no
that
idea.
there's a
That's
great analysis, right? Because it's true when you start talking about the ROI, you start to go through these 5 steps, and at the end, you start to the ROI and economic mobility. But at the end of the day, it's about acceptance, and it can be accepted by all stakeholders if people have a clear understanding of it. And then also, the institution has a direction of what to do next. So it's not just about the data, right? It's about what do you do next with it.
exactly. So I think, you know, we go when we work with folks nationally or statewide, we work through these stages of grief, and that's kind of like our one of our roles is that we're good at is we move people along the stages, right? They might be in the denial stage, and we want to get them somewhere further down that line. And I think that we've done that pretty quickly. I, I'm encouraged by the work that we've done in California over the past year or two. So I think there's a lot more opportunity. And then to your point, you got many folks to acceptance. It's like, okay, how do we come together to think about best practices? Because we're all trying to do the same thing. And now we have more information to help us do that.
Yeah. So I want to give you a chance to give us some final thoughts. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners around return on investment, economic mobility, and also the future of HEA Group and the work you're trying to do in the future?
Yeah, I would just say, you know, it's time to start using this information or tell your friends, tell your colleagues, or else we're just going to get left behind. You know, it's not going anywhere. It's not me saying this. I just see it, and I think it's a reality. Everyone's talking about value. College costs have gone up in many areas. Everyone is thinking about this. Number one reason why students go to college, even though there's so many other benefits, is for greater employability and to obtain a financially secure future. So I would say, you know, start leaning into this conversation and be a leader on it. You know, there's a lot of folks like yourself, many other people that I've worked with that are moving in this direction. They're a few steps ahead. So there's federal laws coming down that are also going to have some requirements that students have good outcomes in some way. So I would love to be of assistance with the HEA group in any way possible to help us do that proactively to make this continuous improvement rather than hearing from the federal government to say, you know, now you're in danger of losing something that you didn't think you were going to lose, meaning federal funding. So in terms of us, like we're moving forward. You know, I'm excited about the next year. Obviously, the drum needs to keep beating on this to move folks along. Also, I think the next step is the so what. what do we do? What do we do from here? How do we do it? I know you're working on some stuff at Compton and other folks around the nation. So excited to be part of that in any way that we can.
Him too as well. Michael, thank you very much for being on Equity Chat 2.0. Reminds users to visit equityavengers.com, where you can find our podcast, Equity Avengers information, Equity Avenger Assemble, and sign up to get our newsletter. Please follow us on LinkedIn, X, and Blue Sky. But this is Keith Curry, a part of the Equity Avengers 2.0. Thank you and have a great day.